Thank you very much. Lessons learned. This is one of the topics that just about everybody in project management says is absolutely essential. No matter what you do, at the end of every project, you must do lessons learned. But I guess in certain ways, I'm going to be the exception. Now, there are good reasons to do lessons learned and a lot of potential benefits to be gained. The idea, and this is straight out of the PMBOK, is that we want to get if we have a desirable outcome, we'd like to get it again. If we get an undesirable outcome, we'd like to avoid it again. We'd like to use information to figure out the root cause of various issues that come up and determine what it is we could do about them in the future. And we want to draw on both positive and negative experience. And above all, we have to share and use that knowledge, or else we really haven't accomplished much of anything. On the other hand, what usually happens is most places don't do it at all or only give lip service to it. And it's very tough. It's almost human nature when we start talking about a project we've done where we have some degree of emotional involvement with it. All of a sudden, especially at the end of the projects, people are quite sensitive to anything that they perceive as criticism, and all too easily the whole thing turns into what I refer to as a blame-storming session, where we try to make sure that not that we I'm sorry, we focus on what's to blame. We react badly to it. We get defensive about it. We're more interested in blame shifting than in problem solving. From a political perspective, it's also awkward if the lesson that could be learned is something that the boss did wrong, and so we don't want to learn those lessons. And then we write a report, nobody reads it, and check lessons learned off the to-do list, and that is really about it. Now, let's see. The difference in theory and practice, team members are going to come in with a positive attitude and expectations. This does happen sometimes, but blame-storming and negative feedback, as I've mentioned, creates an atmosphere of defensiveness. And remember, some people are more attuned to that and more likely to go there than others. We expect that the useful information, whether positive or negative, will be shared and we'll get the benefit of that on future projects. But in fact, we tend to spend a lot more time dealing with unique events on a particular project unlikely to be repeated. We don't normally have any systematic format for getting that information spread, and as a result, many of our recommendations are not adopted. We also sort of take for granted as an underlying assumption on lessons learned that whatever it is we do learn will work on a future project. But as we know, again from the PMBOK, projects are temporary and unique, and as a result, lessons from past projects can often be of little use. Now, there are three major problems then before we get into some solutions. The first is the if everything is exactly like it was last time problem, people reacting with the not invented here syndrome. And most importantly, and probably the biggest lack in lessons learned, is lessons aren't the only thing of value that you can learn. Let's take a look at all three of those. Now, in my novelist hat, my books have focused on what's called alternate history, where you take a real event that happened historically that you can easily imagine having gone a slightly different way, and you explore all of the consequences. And it is amazing how powerful even these infinitesimally small changes can make. So when we have a lesson, we tend to be reactive rather than proactive, and the symptom is often known as locking the barn door after the horse has escaped. There's nothing to be done about it. Sometimes when a problem happens, we call it the one-time value of surprise. Now that, for example, in 9/11, one of the biggest reasons that the attack was successful is that up until that day, everybody thought that if your plane got hijacked, the smartest, most sensible thing you could do is sit down, shut up, behave yourself, and you would be fine. And yet, now after 9/11, now that we know that that is no longer reliable, what happens is no one will behave the same way, and assuming that we're going to start with the same baseline situation is just not reasonable. We focus on yesterday's problems and yesterday's situations and fail to recognize that we're in a fast-moving environment. And even if the projects are very, very similar, they, from a problem point of view, the uniqueness is a very big deal. And small details, as I said, in the novel here, Fox on the Rhine, the bomb plot of 1944 against Adolf Hitler failed because somebody accidentally bumped a briefcase with his foot and moved it about 2 feet behind a concrete stanchion. Total accident, random, small detail, and yet everything changes. The not invented here syndrome. It turns out that other people's lessons learned, and even our own lessons learned, tend not to transfer. Here's a particular study that we found about the not invented here syndrome. And the study says that we start to improve performance over the first year and a half of a project group, and then it plateaus. And after that, performance steadily decreases. One of the reasons is the group now feels itself to be expert. They know everything, and they tend to have a reflexive action to reject new ideas. And that's the not invented here syndrome. And in the study, they talk about various ways to overcome it, but it is tough. Xerox, for example, built the Palo Alto Research Center, PARC, which is responsible for an amazing set of developments from the optical mouse to the graphical user interface that have made a major impact on the world. But Xerox got almost no benefit from it. And why? Well, because they sort of let it be known organizationally that PARC was where they put the smart people. And so the rest of the organization began to have a reflex. We're smart too. And so the PARC lessons were primarily ignored by Xerox itself. And this is also human nature. You can get around it, you can deal with it, but like all of these things, you have to recognize what's going on up front. So let's take a look at some ways to do a better job. And we'll deal with all of these. These are in my book, Creative Project Management. The first is, why wait till the end of the project to do lessons learned? Why not do it up front? Because if you do lessons learned at the end of the project, the only potential beneficiaries are future projects. And if you do it before, it can be an advantage to you. You might say, well, how do you do that? But we'll get into that in the next slide or so. And that is the 7-level outcome evaluation technique, where you imagine yourself having finished the project at different levels of success or failure, and ask yourself what circumstances or conditions are most likely to have put us there. And since I said one of the biggest weaknesses in lessons learned is that it limits itself to lessons, you'll do a lot better, and you'll also avoid sort of the negative feelings that people have about the word lesson by calling it value recovery, because that's the point. We put this work into the project, and if we can extract value over and above the final end product of the project, we have achieved something of much greater value. We want to make sure that we do the right amount. If it's a 2-week project and a $3,000 total budget, there's not a lot to be gained by a comprehensive, in-depth, item-by-item analysis of the project. You're not going to get that much.
Hi there, hope you enjoyed that last clip. My name is Michael Maludis, and if you'd like to watch the full 60 minutes of that last webcast, while also getting complete unlimited access to our entire library of IT learning, simply visit our subscribe page at greatpro.org/subscribe. Unlimited annual access is $199 per year, but if you use the coupon code LEARN2EARN, you can drop that membership fee to just $149. That's less than $13 per month for unlimited access to over 1,000 hours of on-demand career development, covering the entire spectrum of IT management best practices, including business analysis and requirements, software development, quality and testing, risk management, process improvement, project management, and even digital transformation. But your membership doesn't just give you unlimited access to our vast learning library. You also get free access to our mobile app, as well as direct access to our network of over 300 of the world's leading IT consultants, all of whom are dedicated to putting practical knowledge at your fingertips so that you can learn more and earn more. I hope you will join me in becoming a member of the Great IT Professional and advancing your career with us. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button above so that you get notified whenever we publish new free webcasts each week of the year. Thank you for your time and best wishes for your continued success.